What's going on, everybody? Ryan Pineda here. In today's video, I am going to go over what I learned from reading 52 books last year. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name's Ryan Pineda. I'm a business owner here in Las Vegas. We do a lot of real estate investing, over 100 deals a year with fix and flips, wholesales, rentals, those types of deals. And on top of doing all that stuff, I also had a really big goal to read 52 books this year. For those of you counting at home, that is one book per week. And here's the thing, despite having so much going on, I was able to accomplish it. And in turn, I had my best year ever financially, in business, and family, everything in 2020. And so I wanna tell you about what I learned from this experience and why I think it played a huge role. I'm gonna break this video down into 3 sections. I'm gonna go over why I did it, what I learned, and what the top 5 books were that I read. And then I'm gonna encourage you guys to set your own goal for this next year on how many books you wanna read. So let's just jump into it. First off, why did I do this? Well, every single year, I set goals. If you haven't heard, I actually have a planner that you can download completely for free. I'll link to it below. It's called the Raise Plus Planner. And the word RAISE is an acronym. It stands for relationships, assets, intellect, spirit, and exercise. And so one of my intellect goals has always been to read a certain amount of books per year. How can I improve what I know and just try and learn as much as possible this coming year? And so I set a goal to read 52 books for the year. I figured if I could read a book a week, I'm gonna learn some crazy stuff. And it's for sure gonna influence me on the decisions I make throughout the year. Prior to this, I had actually attempted this goal in 2018. Back then, I ended up reading 40 books. So even though I didn't hit the goal, I learned a lot of great things from that experience. 2018 was my best year financially ever to that point. And I definitely believe reading those 40 books played a huge role in why we did so well. And books have greatly influenced my life in general. Much of the stuff that you see me talking about is because I've read it in books, or I've talked to authors, I've talked to other people who have taught me the things that I know. In fact, I learned to flip houses by reading books. I remember back in 2014, I read every single Bigger Pockets book that was published to that point. And it's crazy now because Brandon Turner, who wrote a lot of those books, is now one of my friends. Shout out to Brandon for writing those books, because had I not read them, I would not be here talking on this camera on YouTube right now. I wouldn't be in this office. I wouldn't have done any of the things I'm doing unless I got inspired by the book Brandon wrote and went out there and started flipping houses. So believe me when I tell you that one book can definitely change your life if it's the right book. My life is a perfect testament to that. I started flipping houses when I got the knowledge on how to do it from a book. And so my theory was, I had a great year in 2018 reading 40 books. If I'm able to go read 52 books, I should have a great year this year. I should learn a lot, and I should be able to take totally different actions than I have before because I have new information and new things I know. And guess what? I ended up doing it. It wasn't easy by any means. It took a lot of hard work. I'm actually gonna talk about it in the next section of what I learned from the experience itself. But the one thing I'll say is, if you're gonna go on this challenge, whether it's 52 books, whether it's 30 books, or whatever the case is, figure out the best way for you to read books. Personally, I read the majority of them on my Kindle. I love the Kindle because it's so small, it's lightweight, I can bring it anywhere. I also like that I can read it in the dark because it's backlit. I'm just really not a big fan of physical books. They're way bigger, you can't read them in the dark, you need a light. I just prefer the Kindle so much more. But maybe you're the type of person who likes listening to audibles. That's totally fine. If you wanna go listen to 52 books this next year, I got no problem with that. Just figure out how you learn best and what's gonna allow you to hit the goal that you wanna hit. All right, so let's go on to the next phase of this video. What did I learn from this experience? Now, I'm not gonna talk about the things I learned from specific books. That's actually gonna be the next section of this video. I just wanna talk about what did I learn from going through the process of reading 52 books a year. First thing I learned is it takes a lot of discipline. You cannot read 52 books in a year if you are not disciplined. It's very easy to not read a book at all for a month, 2 months, 3 months, if you do not prioritize it. So if you're gonna try and do this goal, you gotta be extremely disciplined. Second thing you're gonna have to do is cut out some things in your life. You're gonna have to gain some time back from somewhere, and so you gotta cut it out from something else. So for me, I did not watch very much Netflix or HBO or any of this stuff. If I go and watch a 2-hour movie, that's time that I could have spent reading these books. Which is gonna have more value for my life? The 2-hour movie or the books? Well, clearly it's gonna be the books. Now, I'm not saying that you can't watch any movies and you can't have any type of entertainment. Not what I'm saying at all. I watch plenty of Lakers basketball games. I watch plenty of Packers football games. Like, I'm totally fine with having leisure. But you need to be controlled with it. You got to be disciplined, like we talked about. You can't just only do that in your free time. You're gonna have to start cutting some things out, and one of those things might be social media. We spend so many hours consuming social media, and a lot of it, unfortunately, does not improve our lives. Hopefully this video is improving your life, and it's a good use of social media, but sometimes we like to just, watch TikToks and it has no impact on our life. It's just pure entertainment. So be prepared to cut out some things and make some sacrifices. Third thing I learned is that you gotta schedule it into your day. So for me, I didn't do any reading in the morning. I didn't do any reading during the daytime because I already have a morning routine. I work during the daytime. When I get home, I've got to spend time with my family and eat dinner and all that stuff. So I read late at night. The majority of my reading is after I put my kids to bed, which is around 8 o'clock. And I can enjoy just sitting down and reading from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10 or something like that. But you got to put it into your schedule on when you're actually going to read. And a lot of you might be thinking, Ryan, how long do you have to read per day to hit this goal? For me, I would say I average 30 minutes of reading a day. Some days I would read for an hour, other days I wouldn't read at all. I'm not saying you got to do it every single day, but for me anyways, I'm a pretty fast reader. Took me about 30 minutes a day on average to do a book a week. Fourth thing I learned is that I'm a busy guy, okay? I've got a lot going on, like I just mentioned, running multiple businesses, doing all this social media, making videos, all this stuff. I travel a lot, and I was still able to accomplish this. So I want you guys to know there's really no excuse. Literally anyone in the world could read a book a week. It's just a matter of, do you want to do it? Do you believe that it's going to change your life? And do you actually want to schedule it and put it into your calendar and make the time? I don't want to hear from anyone that, oh, I'm too busy. I wish I could do it, but I just got all this stuff going on. It's like, no, we all could fit in 30 minutes a day into our schedule from taking out something. And if your schedule is that packed and you literally have nothing, okay, go wake up 30 minutes earlier. Don't sleep as long. The next thing I learned is sometimes you end up reading a book that you're not too interested in, but you gotta push through it. I've had multiple books this year that started off really slow, they were really boring, and then in the end, I ended up learning one thing that made a huge difference in my life. And think about it, if you could take away one thing from a book that has a drastic impact, wasn't it worth taking the 5 hours to read that book? Or however long it took? Like, I think it is. So I'm really looking for one golden nugget out of each book. If I can get more than that, that's awesome, but I always wanna try and take away something. Now, did I take away something from every single book this year? No, I read some books that I did not resonate with. I ended up finishing them, I wouldn't recommend them to anyone, but I pushed through and read them. The last thing I wanna say that I learned from this experience is that there is so much that I don't know. Like seriously, sometimes I get a big ego and I'm like, man, I know a lot of stuff. I've been through a lot. I give advice. People pay me to tell them what to do. But there is so much I have no idea about. And anytime I get to go to a new field that I don't have a lot of knowledge in and learn about it, I'm super excited. One of those fields this year was stocks. Another one was Bitcoin. I got to learn a lot about those things from listening to podcasts, from reading books about it, and I have such a better understanding than I did a year ago. And now those are two things that I invest in because I actually understand them. So if you're one of these people like me who might have some pride issues and you think that you know it all or you think you know a lot, humble yourself and realize you don't. There's so much you don't know, and it's amazing what you can find out. So those are the main things that I learned from the experience. I'm sure a lot of you guys wanna know what I actually learned from the books and are applying to my life, so I'm gonna go into those now. I'm gonna give you the top 5 books and just what I learned from each one of them. And let me add that these books are in no particular order. Some of them I read earlier in the year, so my memory's a little fuzzy about them, but the general concepts can be applied to almost everybody, and I have applied them to my business and my life. So the first book I wanna tell you about is Atomic Habits. It was an amazing book that I read at the beginning of the year, and it played a huge role in what actions I took throughout the year. The biggest thing that I picked up from Atomic Habits is that your circumstances play such a big role on your habits. To give a very basic example from this book, they talked about how the military back at Vietnam was getting addicted to drugs. And I can't remember if the drug was opium or heroin or something like that, but the point is they were super scared that these people were gonna come back to the States after the war and just be addicted to all these drugs. And they found out something crazy. Once they got back to the States, almost all of them were not addicted anymore. How could so many people be addicted while in Vietnam, but when they go home, they're not addicted anymore? It doesn't make any sense. And what they found out was the circumstance is what fuels your habit. And so when you're in Vietnam and you're under stress, you're in war, your life's on the line, everyone around you is doing drugs, you are bound to do drugs. It's so hard to resist it when everyone around you is doing it and you've got all of these other things going on around you. When none of your friends are doing it, when you're at home, you're not scared for your life, you're not stressed, you don't have all of these things going on that you did in Vietnam, the addiction doesn't really happen anymore. You don't have the triggers that make you want to do it anymore. And so the moral of the story is, if you want to change your habits, you need to first change your surroundings. And I noticed this in my life. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I love eating ube ice cream. And so if I have ube ice cream in the freezer, there's a pretty good chance I'm gonna eat it at night after dinner. But if it's not in the freezer, I'm not gonna eat it. I don't wanna go to the store and go get it. It's just too much of a hassle. And so when bad things are easily accessible, you are more likely to do it. If you just get rid of them out of your sight, you're probably not gonna do them anymore. So that was a big thing I learned. Change your surroundings to change your habit. The second book that played a huge role on me was Who Moved My Cheese? Now, this was a very short book. I think it took like 30 minutes to read. That's my favorite type of book, you know? Spend 30 minutes reading, counts as one of my books for the year. I love it. But here's the lesson from the book. No matter what has been your source of income to this point, your cheese, essentially, that does not mean it's gonna be your source of income or what provides for you tomorrow. The thing is, the cheese is always moving. And in today's world where things are happening so fast, where industries are changing, the way we do business is changing, that cheese is moving. So if you're trying to just say, oh man, this is going to just stay the same forever, this is how we're gonna make money, that is not a smart thing to do because the cheese will move. So you gotta constantly be willing to adapt. And if you are, you're always going to have the cheese. If you're stuck in your old ways, that cheese is gonna move and you're gonna starve. So that is a great book to illustrate that point. Third book I read was The Price of Tomorrow. And I heard about this author, Jeff Booth, on the Investors Podcast, one of the best podcasts that I've been listening to this year. And really that podcast, that book, and other things have influenced me tremendously this year. I have a much better understanding of how the future is gonna play out, which The Price of Tomorrow is about. Essentially, he is talking about how technology is moving at such a fast rate, we can't even comprehend it. It's reached the point where the exponential growth has begun, and it took a long time to get there. For a long time, technology looked like this. But once it started to exponentially grow, things have been changing like crazy. And this was one of my favorite books of the year, and he gives so many examples of technology changing. And the beauty is technology continues to get cheaper for everyone. To give an example, 20 years ago when they came out with the first like cell phone in your car and stuff like that, only the super wealthy had it. It was like a luxury item. And in the 2000s, we had the flip phones and some people were getting them and all that stuff. Then in the 2010s, we get the iPhone and smartphones, and everyone has a smartphone. And the smartphone is just so infinitely more powerful than those original phones or even the flip phones. And literally everyone has one. Your grandma has one, your 10-year-old has one. Nobody doesn't have a cell phone. And that's just one example of tech that has gotten better and cheaper. And we're on that way where things are gonna continue to go down that path. Tech is gonna continue to get cheaper, it's gonna continue to get better, everyone's gonna have more access to everything, and it's gonna be an amazing thing. But because of all that, there's gonna be some change in the world. Jobs will significantly change because people won't be required to do these old jobs that people used to do. So I would definitely go check that book out if you're curious on how the future is gonna play out. Fourth book I learned a lot from was Blue Ocean Strategy. Now, this was an awesome book that I recently read about competition. Now, being a businessman, you have to acknowledge competition. For the people who say, oh, I don't worry about competition, like I'm just doing me, we're gonna do our thing. You can do that. Like, it's good to focus on your company and yourself, but you also have to have your eyes on what the competition's doing. They may be shifting and moving in a certain way, or maybe they're trying to copy you and do what you're doing because you're having success. You have to be aware. But what Blue Ocean Strategy teaches is that you don't have to really compete if you can go down a separate path that doesn't currently exist. And so in any industry, there's always a different path that people aren't on yet. And he talks about a lot of different companies, like Southwest, for instance. Southwest was really the first company to offer super cheap rates. They stopped doing assigned seating, they stopped doing all these things so that they could carve out their own lane. And there are a whole bunch of other examples that they list for companies that have made their own lane. But here's the point. Do not fear competition or fear an industry because there's a big competitor. Instead, think about, where is no one at? Where is there literally no competition in this industry? And you'll start thinking differently and becoming more innovative. The last book I want to tell you guys about is Die with Zero. So this was an amazing book that really kind of makes you think differently than how you always have been. The concept is this: you want to die with $0. You want to have given away or spent all your money before you die. You see, most people die with a very big fortune, and then it ends up going to the kids, or it ends up going to charities, or whatever the case is. But you were never able to see them benefit from all that fortune and all your giving because you're dead. And so it comes up with this new concept of giving and spending while you're alive so that you die with zero. And trust me, I know you're thinking that's irresponsible, that's crazy, but the way they explain it in the book makes perfect sense. I'm not doing a great job of it on this video. But one other concept that the book talks about that I love is it's better to go spend money and go create memories when you're young. If you go on that vacation or you go experience that thing, you get to have that memory the rest of your life. If you just save up all your money and then you go on that vacation when you're 50, you're not gonna enjoy it as much because number one, you're older, your body's in less health, and number two, the memory's just not as long. You got it first when you're 50 instead of 20. And so you only get to enjoy the memory for so long. And a lot of people don't think about it, but your memories have value. We like to think about value in terms of dollars and material things, but memories also have a value that you got to take into account. So definitely check out Die with Zero, one of my favorite books I read this year. So those were the 5 books that I was really influenced by this year. Some of you might be wondering, Ryan, are you going to do it again for 2021? And here's my answer to that. For this year, I'm going to actually go for 36 books. That's just 3 books a month, and here's the reason. Number one, I avoided reading really long books because that would prevent me from hitting my 52 book goal. I read a lot of books that were 2 to 4 hours long, but there are some great books that are 8 to 10 hours. I did not want to read those because they would prohibit me from hitting the goal. So if I shoot for 36 this year, it allows me to read those longer ones. And if I do more than 36, great. But if I don't, it's okay. I ended up reading the books that I wanted to read. The other thing is I actually want to consume more social media. And a lot of you are probably thinking, that's crazy. Why would you want to do that? You're always talking about not consuming. Consuming social media is a problem for most people. For me, I actually don't consume enough of it. I kind of post, I'll comment, I'll do my thing, but I don't watch a lot of other stuff. But I do need to watch more because I want to see what other creators are doing. I want to learn from them. I want to improve my craft. And the way you improve your craft is by watching the people who are really crushing it. So I do want to watch more social media so I can improve myself as a creator and influencer. And if you're interested in growing your influence, definitely go check out my social media course. I'll link to it down below. But I do believe anyone could read 52 books in a year. I do believe that you could do 30 books. It's really just about making the time for it and believing that your life can be impacted in a big way by doing this. Lastly, I'm gonna link to all 52 books that I read below. You guys can take from any of those books that you want. Definitely read the 5 books that I mentioned. You probably noticed out of the 52 books, the majority of them are business related. A lot of people ask me, Ryan, what about life books? What about personal development? All that stuff. To be completely honest, I read my Bible every day. That's all I feel I need for my personal development, for my spiritual development. And so that's just something that I focus on for that side. I prefer to read the business books and the marketing books and all that stuff for the other side. And lastly, if you didn't know, I actually wrote a book called Flip Your Future on how to flip houses. So if you are interested in getting into real estate investing, that's a good book to add to your list. And many people have changed their lives from that book, and I hope it can do the same for you if you want to get into real estate investing. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a like. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. Go follow me on all the socials. Until next time, take care.